in terms of trying to get this together. I was actually in the middle of solving a big, massive problem, but nonetheless, it's nice to be with you. Now, this is the first Base University's IT Research and Innovation Week, and we're hoping that with the initiative by Dr. Rislan, this initiative will flourish and will go on from strength to strength. Now, I'm not going to share with you the entire full presentation slide. Obviously, there is so much work to do, but I just feel that I need to ensure that at least I present something, and I can always send people slide at a much more later time. Now I'm going to be talking about developing research innovation culture. I will look at the Nigerian universities, technical colleges of education, as well as polytechnic altogether, TEIS. And then the second part is looking at the academics themselves. Now, as I've said, it's a very short, it will be a short presentation. It will be more of a discussion than talking at you. So after the end of the session, please feel free to ask questions, and I will try to answer as much as possible, and also to incorporate feedback, etc., into my slide. Now, the next slide I have here is to give you an idea of how businesses involved in R&D. Look at this slide. 20 companies in the world, the level of R&D intensity. Now we look at R&D intensity basically comparing companies' annual turnover versus what they are spending in R&D. So that gives us some sort of intensity there. This is as of 2018, the last time we have data. As you can see there, Amazon is leading the pack, 22.6%. Sorry, 22.6 billion actually spending on R&D. Now, people might think that why Amazon when we have all these big companies such as Microsoft, IBM, Google, and so on and so forth. But unfortunately, they are all spending less compared to Amazon. Now look at Alphabet. Now, I don't know how many of you know Alphabet, the company that owns Google. People know Google, but what people don't know is that Google is just a dot in the group of companies controlled by Alphabet. So look at how much they're spending, 16.2 billion. And the figure goes on there to Volkswagen, to Intel, Microsoft, Apple, and so on and so forth, right up onto Siemens. Spending 6.5%. Now, I put that in there to give people perspective. So when we talk about R&D culture, we need to think big. In Nigeria, we're still very much far behind. Our R&D budget is less than 1% of our GDP, which is far below even African average. Anyway, let's move on. The next thing I'm going to talk about is to look at the mission description of TEIS, as it were, just to convince colleagues that whether you're in a polytechnic or college of education or monotechnics, you have research mission there, you have innovation culture there, and so there is no reason, in my view, to not to get involved in R&D and innovation. So look at Federal College of Education, Federal College of Statistics, which is part of monotechnics, they have a research culture there as well. And if we move on to colleges of education, they have research culture as well. This is from the NCC website, and you can look at their mission to make colleges of education center of excellence in teaching, learning, and research to facilitate production of top-class teachers. So whether you're in schools, polytechnic, universities, they expect you to be involved in research. And we'll talk more about the need to do that at the HE level. So still on the introduction there, and look at polytechnic here as well. Again, when you look at the act that set up polytechnic, they specifically emphasize teaching, research, and knowledge transfer. And this is a Federal Polytechnic Act 1919. And in fact, this was this particular act was reviewed recently, and the president, the current president, actually signed an amendment to law, I think a couple of years ago, that now gives Polytechnic in Nigeria power to award their degree. I have to say that not many of them are taking that, taking advantage of this new law for a variety of reasons. Some of them don't have the means, some don't have resources, some don't have staff, and so on and so forth. But at least the key thing to note here is that the system in Nigeria, the legal framework allow Polytechnic to be involved in research and innovation. And so there is, in my view, no excuse to be left behind. The next one is actually, again, this is looking at Polytechnic, but this one is more of a university than a Polytechnic. If you look at the University of Maiduguri, for instance, look at what they actually say there. Let me see if I can get this one much more increased for you. So the mission there is also about scholarship as well as research and enterprise. Now, this is taking the university's mission altogether, and I'll be talking more about that, specifically looking at academics, how to develop this culture in academics. When you look at all these, colleges, polytechnics, as well as universities together, teaching and learning is at the core of what they do, is at the core of their mission. And research also is part of it, an important, mission of these universities and polytechnic and colleges, as we have seen the previous slide, as well as enterprise as well. So, and the last bit of it is the community service. So, as you can see from the mission there, universities already have it, and so the next phase of it is how to get academics, lecturers, also to be involved in this, a mission that universities expressly stated that they support. So I'm not going to go on too much on these reflective, questions. But what I'm saying here to colleagues that are there is that think about your institution, think about your polytechnic, think about your universities, and think about those, four areas of research, teaching, learning, as well as enterprise and community service, and think about your role there. And we're going to look at your role in a minute. And so I asked the question here, even before you consider your own role, I think, can you answer this question? Are you sure that the universities or the technical that you represent take all these four goals seriously? And that's the question. if they don't take it seriously, it will be difficult for us to really want to, expect other people to take them seriously. So that's a reflective, a question for you. And this is where the meat of the whole discussion, is located. Now, many in Nigeria, as you know, almost 100% of our universities there are doing more teaching and learning than research or enterprise. And when I talk about enterprise, I do not mean universities making their halls or parts of their facilities available for churches to run their Sunday services, or for mosque for people to pray, or to be collecting rent and so on and so forth. They are part of ways of making money for universities, but the specific enterprise that I'm focusing on relate to universities making use of their knowledge, making use of their research, innovation, discovery, how they're able to leverage this discovery and sell it, some of these, to companies and make money out of it. So that is the heart of enterprise. The heart of enterprise of universities are not making rooms available for churches to run, or some of these thing that we do in that part of the world. So this is an important part of what universities and lecturers do, and that is why I put a question mark there. TEI, is it mission accomplished? When you look at what I've been discussing and look at up to this stage, the job of universities, or the job of lecturers, is to ensure that students are well-rounded. If you are going to develop a well-rounded student, then they must have this, they must be able to tick all these, boxes. These are the KPI: knowledge, creativity, innovation, enterprise. If that is not, if that is not what your university is all about, then you need to think twice in terms of supporting the universities. In terms of I know people don't have choice, but in terms of working with the university, if you work in the Western world, you can have a choice and say, well, I'm not going to work for you because you are not involved in those key KPI. So but as I've said, for universities in Nigeria, much of what we do is actually very much teaching, little enterprise. But even when we teach as well, our students are not able to get jobs or set up their businesses because we are not able to tick all these boxes: knowledge, creativity, innovation, enterprise. Every student that leaves our universities must be able to have those. And so when we have a well-rounded student, it will be a student that underpin that knowledge they gain from university, with ability to apply that knowledge in a variety of contexts. So when we look at Google, we look at Apple and some of these big tech companies, the knowledge that they get from universities is what they use to set up these businesses. In fact, many of them actually set up businesses, especially Stanford. They set up businesses before they leave before they finish their studies. So, and I think that is what we need to reflect on as academics, as we teach students, whether we are ensuring that those KPI are fully taken care of. Now, before I go on, I talk here about the work-ready graduate or market-ready entrepreneur graduate. So it has to be to get employment or create jobs. And then, and moving on from that, I move on to a bit of summary of what I've been talking about in terms of TEIS. Developing research culture, innovation practice involves those three things. We have a written policy, written policy also that relates to raising money, and also policy that speaks to research mission of the university. And those are very important. So if you combine this strategy with the external funding, it will give you research mission, and then use that mission to support doctoral students, as well as to advance research. Without research, there is we can't do much as academics. So that is the summary from the perspective of university. And what I'm going to do now, in the short term, I'm going to be with you, is to give an example of a university here in the United Kingdom, University of Glasgow, how they are able to not only able to tick all those KPI boxes which I mentioned earlier on, but also able to encourage their academics to ensure that they take research seriously. So University of Glasgow, they have a model called preponderance approach. That's their model, and that means for every academics that actually work there, either new one that are coming into the university or those that have to apply for promotion, they are not promotion. They have to meet the criteria. There are 4 out of 7 of those dimensions they used to assess staff. I'm sure you have it in Nigeria as well, but the difference might be how rigorous some of Nigerian institutions actually stick to this criteria. So for them, academic output is very, very important, and the output basically talking about publication output, talking about teaching output as well. I will come to that in a minute. Talking about research output as well. They're looking at supervision, your ability to supervise doctoral students. Now, universities that don't have a doctoral program or any form of research program might be missing out. So I will encourage universities, if they don't have that status, they should please apply for that status, because without having that base, that student studying various disciplines in various disciplines, research various activities or situation or phenomena, it will be very difficult for universities to really develop this culture of research and innovation. It will be very, very difficult. So I can't emphasize this enough. A university with no doctoral program, please try and apply for one. Just start from one single a program, and that can grow. And then even lecturers can grow as well. That's a situation. So for University of Glasgow, they use esteem as well. When they say esteem here, they simply mean the esteem of academics. Are you well respected in your discipline? Can they invite you to give speech and among other universities? What about your view? People listen to you or respect you, in terms of citation and so on and so forth. But the esteem is more of the perception of you than anything else, and your work. There are some times that they need people to speak to certain area or certain issues, whatever the topic, and they know people to ask, and those are the with universities measure esteem. The learning and teaching practice is also very important. When we talk about research, we talk about learning, teaching, and learning. Now, remember, Glasgow put learning first, as opposed to teaching and learning. I think I mentioned this in a forum, a number of areas where I've been able to speak about the need to call it learning and teaching, not teaching and learning, or even teaching. But universities in Nigeria, we talk about missions are teaching, research, and other things. But the reality is that students are the heart of what we do at the university. So if they are the heart of what we do, why should they have to put teachers first? That is lecturers. It doesn't mean that lecturers are not doing good things, or they're not really important. But the reality is that they are second in terms of hierarchy of importance. I would rate university lecturers as second to student, because the focus is actually on student and the practice that they bring. So teaching practice is important, and the leadership of university is also important, as well as the leadership of individual academics as well, for University of Glasgow. And they talk about management engagement. Now, this is for people that are head of departments, ability to manage academics. It's different from, we have academic leadership, and we have managerial leadership, and we have other forms of leadership. So if you are going to be a manager, you need to be able to combine both academic leadership as well as management leadership. It is really important. Academic leadership is about you leading by example. When people see the amount of work you're doing in terms of publication, in terms of research, in terms of writing, in terms of teaching, then you're providing leadership. But if people don't see that, then it will be very difficult to encourage or even motivate colleagues to sign up to what you believe in. And the management aspect of it relates to money. Can you ensure that your department or faculty is not spending more than necessary? These are the kind of things University of Glasgow put in that sort of model called preponderance approach. So they put that into consideration before you can get promotion. It's as simple as that. And many universities in the UK are doing the same thing. You cannot be a professor without having some sort of pot of research grant. And in fact, for many universities, at least you need to earn maybe about 50% of your salary in terms of money you bring into the university. You don't just be a professor for nothing. University paying so much money on you and without getting something in return. So the money is not actually for you, but attracting grant and being able to use that grant to foster research is one of the things that they use when they are judging people in terms of whether they merit promotion or not. So I'm going to the end of it now. I'm conscious of the time, my time as well. This is the academic aspect of my discussion. Again, in about 2-3 weeks, I can put all this in much more fuller, expansive a slide which I can share with Dr. Islan, and he can then send it off to colleagues. But I just summarize everything here: teaching and knowledge transfer. Now, this is really, really important. Lecturers, gone are the days where we just go to classrooms and then teach and go. But now, as part of, especially for University of Glasgow, for instance, when they look at your teaching notes, slide, and so on and so forth, and you're able to demonstrate that you converted your teaching notes to some sort of training manual for small businesses. That would be an important way of demonstrating research culture. So in other words, whatever you are teaching, think about that teaching note or teaching or lecture note as a raw material for students, and then you convert that raw material becomes a finished product for other other organizations. So some companies there or some sort of community organization will still might need your note in other forms. If you're teaching an aspect of I don't know, maybe something relating to any form of science or safety, health and safety, and you teach students that sort of basic, and then you produce your lecture note, convert it to some sort of a training manual for staff of, say, NAFDAC or any people that you think might be relevant, might need your input, and you convert that sort of note, for them. That would be an important way of demonstrating your research innovativeness, as it were. So look at your teaching note and say to yourself, can I convert this note to a training manual for other businesses, organization, or government agency? And if you're able to do that, and then conduct training for those organizations, for those staff, and so on and so forth in other setting, then you are transferring knowledge. And that's why transferring your knowledge, then yourself, and or if it's a consultancy, business, or your universities will make some money out of it. So this is kind of thing that we need to have that culture. If you see that as sort of a mission, a culture, and it's much easier to do that. And I think that is one thing we need to take into account. If you have that culture, the next thing you need to do is to say to yourself, look, I can't think of anyone that will need my skill, this training manual, but I can put it on the website, and then spend some money, to promote your website. So that would be one way of actually transferring knowledge as well. So while you're making money, while you're sleeping, some people in some other part of the world, they are clicking your website and buying your training material. So the second point I want to say here is research. So you do some sort of research, and then and look at your output and see how that research can inform policy, can inform practice, can be the result can be leveraged, and then once you do that, you're transferring knowledge as well. So all this actually come in terms of in terms of culture, in terms of intention, determination, and something that you really want to do, and you keep doing it. The other one I want to talk about is academic publication. It's also part of that sort of innovative culture that I talk about. I was in I can't remember the city, Romania, and I was talking to academics there. We're talking about academic entrepreneurship, which is actually one of the things that I actually want to talk to you about today. But unfortunately, other things happen. I'm not able to get that slide together. And my message to them, to these academics, is that you're not just writing for publication. Ensure that what you are writing is actually based on research, as opposed to review literature, which is also a good thing. Review literature and then publish the outcome of literature. I would rather encourage people to actually do some sort of research. It can be small scale research, write it up and publish it. And then I think about people that can benefit from that work in terms of leveraging. Now, disseminating your research output, publication is also part of it. But don't limit your dissemination to academic journal alone. Try and target professional journals as well. You are more likely to get people that are willing to fund your future research and activities when you target professional journals than academic journals. Academic are your peers, but professionals are people that actually in practice, work in industry. And the last one here is entrepreneurship generally, and that takes account of everything that we've been talking about here: the knowledge aspect, research and innovation, academic publication, and entrepreneurship. Now, I use knowledge transfer here to make it simpler, but it's actually innovation. It is just the broad name for it is innovation, but I specifically use this so that people can relate to it more than the word innovation. But it's basically we're talking about innovative practice. So I'm going to finish it here, and then and probably look at one or two more slides. Yeah, I've got collaborative research here. I mean, this is also important in terms of developing that sort of research. Now, for many colleagues, if your universities don't have money to fund you, I would recommend going for what you call action research, very much small scale research that is based on your practice. and it's very much geared towards what they call institutional effectiveness. And I think Dr. Island is actually trying to encourage that base. You can start small by saying, okay, don't let me think big. What can I do to improve practice institutionally? How can we look at institution that I work and then see how much improvement we can make? And that means collaborating with colleagues in other departments, in the same department, in the same faculty, and then and if you want to do it big, you can also collaborate with people outside your university, other universities. But for me, I would just say start small. Start small, see if you can improve things within, and then you can begin to think big in terms of collaboration. There are strategies there, but I'm not going to go deep into that. But as I've said, I'm going to be there, be available all day tomorrow. I'm just dealing with so many things at the same time, including 2 conferences at the same time. So, and if people have questions, want me to elaborate on anything that I've said today, please, join us tomorrow. And I'm sure Dr. Islam can find some sort of space to be able to do that. And then I think, I will just end here towards effective R&D culture in TIs and among academic as well. So the key takeaway for me is this. The universities you work in, the polytechnic or college of education that you actually work in, they are very important. They need to promote that sort of culture. It has to come from above there. And that means that, it must be in their mission statement, as I've demonstrated. So once you have that, and then you have the University of Glasgow as an example that also try to encourage that in terms of promotion, in terms of employment into the academia community, then you have done your part as an institution. Then the next thing is is now to demand from your academics that they need to start looking at their practice as well. Culture. A culture simply means getting used to doing things yourself. That's what it means. And if you want to develop this sort of innovative practice, I've said this among people in Europe time and time again. Anywhere people have asked me to speak. I was speaking to colleagues in Tokyo the other day about this. As academics, you have to really have that sort of culture, intention, and really want to do it. You cannot be forced to do it, but you must embrace that yes, universities expect me to do this, and I really want to do it for myself. And so the most important takeaway for academics is that you need to do it like a salesperson. You just keep on writing. It doesn't mean that you're going to publish everything. Just keep on writing. Just get that sort of culture of writing. If you're doing research, keep on doing research. If you apply for grant, I keep saying to people all over the world that I get to speak, I said, keep writing grant. I mean, when I write grant, maybe out of 10, I may probably be lucky to get 3 successful. But if you don't have that sort of habit, then it will be very, very difficult, because you get rejected in one and then you get fed up and say, well, I don't want to try again. But just keep writing, keep punching it. As a salesperson, that is one way to actually do it. If you're writing for publication as well, I mean, you don't say publication, you just write for just write and put it there. And you should develop that sort of culture. And if you have to teach, make sure that every lesson that you teach always reference research as well. Students will respect you. They will know that what you're giving them is actually up to date, and don't repeat the same lecture note. And if you have to deliver lessons, think about how you can convert that lecture note to training manual. If there are no companies available to leverage your work, put it on the website. Somebody will discover you. And those are the kind of things that academics can do. I have just about 2 hours talk on developing academic entrepreneurship, but I will try and find a slide and send it out to people. But for now, I will end it here. And I have just about 10 minutes or so but people may have questions or whatever. But tomorrow, I should be available if people want to talk more about this. I'll be willing to talk, more, and then share some of the stuff with people as well. So, do we have questions and let me just say that my name, I'm James Ogunleye. I don't know if I should have do a bit of introduction. When I come in, I'm using a shared office. So here, not really my office, but you can hear some sort of background in the some background noise. But please bear with me. So I think I will end it there. As I've said, I've got 10 minutes with you, and if there are questions, please do. But the key thing I'm just trying to say to leave with is that you can develop a innovative culture, research culture. It's just that we need to be intentional about this. Once we're intentional about this, it's much more easier to to go forward from there. And then at the university level, they need to do more as well. Now, at the moment, we have less than 1% or so universities really involved in research. When I say research, I'm talking about research intensive. They're all doing research in one form or the other, but very research intensive. But among many new universities, very little actually going on in terms of research intensity, and so those need to be changed. Once they're able to change that, it's much more easier to convince academics and that they need to engage in research as well. So, and I think if there are people around universities on this on this call, please bear this in mind. Your universities, your leadership is very important in taking your universities, to that sort of direction, research and innovation. And it don't actually cost money, I have to say. Just little amount should be sufficient. Right. Okay. Is Dr. Island still there?
Hello, Dr. James. Good morning.
Oh, yeah. Good morning.
My name is Abdulatif Aliyu. I did post a question on the chat, but I can as well ask this. I'm from the industry.
Oh, I
and
please
I've
do.
listened to your talk, which is very, very good. And my question is that what are your suggestions to bridge the working relationship between the industry, academia, and government? Because sometimes some of the research that goes on in our university are not relevant for the industry around here. So what are your suggestions?
Right. Thanks for asking the question. I think it's actually two ways. We need to encourage the government to really take academia seriously. I mean, in this part of the world where I live, especially, I mean, we can see when the COVID everything started. The government depend on the academia because they know that they are the only people that know everything about knowledge, creation, research, and so on and so forth. And so, government need to know that it's important to work together with universities partners as well as industry. And I'm glad to say that TED Fund is doing that because I'm involved in their program, and I know that they're doing that. So that's for the government. But for academics, we need to show that our research can actually make a difference. That is the most important thing there. We need to keep showing that to convince the government that we can do it. And also, the one way to do that is actually to improve our skills. I remember that, just a few years ago, the success rate of people that are getting TED Fund grant was just about 3%. In other words, the government made the money available for research, but we don't have the skill to tap into research. So government can say, well, how can I cooperate with you when you are not making, making me proud of what you are doing? So through trade fund, I think working together, but academics, we need to punch more. I will give an example. I think I've said it in one forum before. I was at an event in Belgium, and somebody from Dangote was actually there, and we were having this sort of conversation. And the man was saying to me that, look, you're talking about your colleagues, but none of them actually come to us to talk about things that are interesting to us. They always come to us for money, and when they want to build a student hostel, borehole, and all those sort of things. And the man said that, look, I'm a director there. If anything comes to Alaji, it means Alaji Dangote, it should come to me, and we'll look at the proposal. If anyone comes and say this is, we look at your organization, we know we can reduce your cost in this area, we can increase your productivity in this area, we can help with this sort of engineering and so on and so forth. He said to me, we will talk to them. So he said, but your our colleagues, they are not doing that. Yes, we can give money for hostel to build a deep borehole. We can also give money for Senate building, but it is not for us to say that you need to come to us about the research that relate to our own to improvement in our area of business. So my message would be to say that academics, we need to keep knocking on their doors. And this man gave me an example. He said, look, if you are an academic and you spend time to look at our problem, and you write it up, maybe about 2 pages or so, and then get your VC to write a cover letter to us, there is no way we are going to turn you. At least we'll respond to your questions, and that's what that guy said. There is no way we are not going to respond to your letter, because the VC alone supporting your letter shows that this is an important work, and then as a company we will respond. So I'm just saying that one, we can look at the business side of it to say that they want